such. So there really is an inner game that is a part of decluttering, and it should be an interesting conversation. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. It's so good to be here with you. And we get to talk today about decluttering. And what is it that brings us to create clutter in the first place? So it's interesting, the inner dynamic. I've gone through a bit of a decluttering phase just recently and am still in the process. And it was really interesting because it made me very present to the emotional component of this whole decluttering idea. So I don't know about you, but I have collected memorabilia through my life, through my adventures. And you might have ticket stubs or photographs or old letters or travel brochures, which I had a bunch of. So I found myself, as I was going through these things, experiencing different emotions. These memorabilia can be triggering us to go into reverie, and there are all kinds of emotions that get stirred up around that kind of experience. We may have pleasant memories. It may spark joy. It may spark sadness. It may spark melancholy or any number of other emotions. And so part of the decluttering process is a completion, an emotional completion with parts of our past, but also well, I'm just talking about the memory piece right now in terms of memorabilia. So the things we save, what sparks us to save them. So and what I also made myself aware of was that so many of these things had been packed away. They hadn't been viewed, they hadn't been engaged with for years. I hadn't had any connection with them. So now it's been years. There are certain things that we may choose to keep. For instance, maybe we have letters that are valuable to us personally. So one of the things that I found, and I know knew I had them, but they're letters, for instance, from my father to my grandmother during the Second World War. And I'm keeping them. Now, one of the things that we could do is we could take these things and we could digitize them, and that way we could relieve ourselves of the physical thing. So we could have digital records and we could create albums, or we could create a physical album, for example, of these things. I guess it depends on your intentions around the decluttering. I tend to be a bit of a pack rat in that I value these actual physical letters. So even if I don't, and I've never read them, which is a true confession here, I intend to read them at some point, but I have not yet read them. And maybe that is something that we can also engage with in our decluttering process as we go back and we review these things that have a sentimental value, that maybe have a historical value, that we can decide and really like do some inner searching. What is it that we want to do with this thing? Do we want to just keep this thing for the sake of having it as a memorial or a tribute, or for some kind of historical or familial value, or is it the essence of those things, the information that's in those things that we want to capture? So I have bunches of manuals for different courses. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you joining us, honey. Great to be here with you. We're talking about the inner game of decluttering and how we get to contend with a lot of emotion in the context of the sorting through things. And we're talking particularly right now about memorabilia and how, for some people, it might be fine to be able to just digitize those letters. But there's something important to me about the tangible aspect of them. These are letters from my father to my grandmother during the war. But there are other things. There are letters that I've written. Now, another thing that we may have saved, I have saved, for example, that I haven't yet gone through completely, is all kinds of postcards and letters and birthday cards and such that I've received. And I'm putting aside time to be able to go through these things because I want to be able to read them. I want to be able to experience, well, do I still need whatever it is those things were giving me? And if so, do I need the physical thing? Can I digitize it? And can I just release it? So I noticed that I was able to get rid of all kinds of travel memorabilia that I had. And in thinking about that, I was able to say, yes, I'm complete. I'm complete with this portion of my life. And I don't need to carry those physical reminders of those things. So many of us have had multiple careers. And one of my careers was as a software trainer. And I still have, that I haven't yet gotten to go through, all kinds of information related to that period of my life. And I've kept it up until now, partly because I just didn't have the energy to go through it. But I think that we keep things in many cases because we think we're going to revisit something. We want to be able to have that access just in case. Now, with the internet, we have access to all kinds of information that we might not have previously had access to. And so the question is, do we need to have those physical things? I'm a person who loves books. So I've gone through periods where I've sorted through books and released a bunch of books that I had kept for forever, literally for the greater portion of my life. For instance, Shakespeare. I had a whole collection of Shakespeare that just paperbacks, but I realized that I'm not likely to be pulling those books off the shelf and reading them at this point. And if I did want to read them, I can access them through a library. I can access them online. I can access them digitally. There are a multitude of ways to be able to get information. So there's a consideration around redundancy, right? Like, is this something that is irreplaceable? When we think about decluttering, I forget what the name of the book is. You probably know it. It's the fine art of, or the simple art of decluttering. The questions to ask ourselves. One of the questions from this book is, or the main question is, does it spark joy? And I think that that's such a wonderful question to ask ourselves when we are considering whether to keep something or not to keep something. Also, in addition to that question is this useful? Is this something that I will use? And that is a very confronting question, because it requires us to look at our lives and the trajectory of our lives, you know, to be projecting our lives forward and to be looking at, is this something that I am likely to revisit? So as a personal example, I have always been a crafty, arty person, and I have lots of art supplies. I have all kinds of things to do fiber art. I have a loom. I have a spinning wheel. I have things to do painting. And what's interesting is that I have saved things for years and years. I have some things that I have saved. It's kind of frightening to think about it, but for more than 30 years now, that I have reused. In fact, I have saved a juicer and a food processor that is now, let's see, oh, it's crazy to say this, more than 50 years old, that I still use. But I hadn't used for years, but I kept it, and now I use these things and still use them. So I know that there are people that go on decluttering sprees and get rid of all kinds of things that they haven't used maybe in the past year. And I have found for myself that that's that doesn't actually work for me. I did go through a period where I did a whole bunch of decluttering, got rid of a whole bunch of stuff, thinking I wasn't going to need it. And then a need arose for some of the things that I had relieved myself of. And I guess that's okay. I guess that it's something that we need to weigh is what the space, the emotional, physical space that we achieve by relieving ourselves of things, is that more valuable than the space that whatever those things may take up? I know it's a big movement to declutter, to get rid of things. The thing is that what I noticed that I faced in that process also is when I'm finally ready to relieve myself of certain things, what do I do with those things? Because throwing them away, there is no away. It's going somewhere. If you're putting it in the trash, it's going into landfill, right? So old computers, old wires, what do we do with them? And there are organizations that will recycle all different kinds of things. It costs money to pay these organizations to pick up this your trash that then becomes recycled. But there's a challenge that I personally have confronted in clearing things out is like, how can I get rid of these things responsibly? And so maybe you have maybe there's a food co-op near you that has recycling, or some kind of natural food store that has recycling, or there may be in your community, there may be monthly collections for, or annual collections, or some kind of collections for electronics, for electrical kinds of things, for computer related things. It's really interesting that recently I got rid of a couple pieces of furniture, and I actually had done research to find out if there were organizations that I could donate the furniture to. And I found that so many of these organizations weren't taking furniture. So what I did, I live on a main street. So what I did was I put it on the street and people came and picked it up. It was nice furniture. People came and took it. There are groups, like free cycle groups, where you can post things that you're giving away, or you can sell things on Facebook Marketplace, for example, or Craigslist. There are ways to get rid of things or rehome things that people will really appreciate. So donating, doing free cycle kinds of things, and recycling organizations. So, it's interesting in talking about this. I haven't really seen too much or been privy to too much talk about the emotional challenges around decluttering. The first is being willing to confront the memories in the first place. Some people are okay with, hey, you know what? I haven't looked at this in years. I'm not diving into it. I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't even have to open that box because I haven't had a concern about it, a need for it, or an interest in it in a long time. So that's one way to deal with these things, is just take the box and find a new home for the box without having to go through it. Other people like myself, I have to go through everything. It doesn't mean I have to read everything thoroughly, but I need to know what's in the box. And I have these two big crates that are real memorabilia crates. Those I need to go through. And I know when I've gone through them in the past, it's been a deeply emotional experience. So allowing ourselves the time and the space to go through those things and to address the emotions, to address the triggers that may arise, so we can use the decluttering process as a healing opportunity, as an opportunity to find completion with these parts of our lives as we go through things. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, maybe we've collected multiples of all different things for the rainy day, or in the eventuality that we need this, that, or the other thing. And so there's excess. And to be able to relieve ourselves of that excess, we need to come to a place of trust, perhaps, and addressing our fear of not being prepared or not having enough. And I know I grew up with remnants in my family of Depression era mentality where everything was saved. And so because there wasn't necessarily enough, because there wasn't necessarily enough money, because there wasn't necessarily enough resources, that the availability of things also was scarce. And I think we have been so enculturated to be a throwaway society that we just dispose of things, thinking like throwing things away, like there's an away to be had. And so we consume and throw away excessively, that we can recycle, reuse, rehome. So there are degrees to which we get to observe ourselves and our patterns. I think this is a really big topic, actually. I think we get to talk more about this, because there's the acquisition of things, the consuming of things, the buying, because we do that to fulfill a part of ourselves, to fill an empty space in ourselves, or to feel better about ourselves in some way or another. There's that aspect, and that can generate clutter. There's the fear of not having enough, which has us holding on to things way beyond the time that they should be held on to. There's how do we dispose of things that we no longer want to keep? How do we address all the emotional triggers and stimulation that comes with going through things and sorting through things? So I think it's a rich topic. So we will revisit this and dive in a bit more deeply as we consider what kind of personal growth and awareness goes hand in hand with this decluttering process. And it should be an interesting investigation. So that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like and follow and share Enlightened World Network and me. Our links are in the description. And as always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you and to share these musings on what it is to be human. Until next time, so much love to you.